Travis Waygood. So I've been allowed to carry on for the end of the month. I'm noticing that the air vent is louder at times. I hope that doesn't mean that the fan is breaking down again. There's a couple of curiosities from yesterday's news. One is that an elderly man was found dead yesterday on the Mill Creek Trail. Apparently they suspect he slipped and fell and died from his injuries. I don't know if that's the trail I would have taken. I don't think that goes over the mountain, Mount Olympus, by the way. But I did find that interesting, that there would have been a large police presence there at that area. Another thing that happened yesterday is that a fire shut down the 70 in the freeway in Colorado. I doubt I would have walked that far if I had been picked up by somebody who wants to give me a ride. And I definitely would have had that impact me. So yeah, I'm very well aware of things as I've been catching up on the news now. By identifying that I was getting a stomach flu yesterday, recognizing that if I pushed through it, I would end up with a high fever and be non-functional and would not be able to leave. Ended up preventing me from leaving yesterday, as I informed the abusers who are removing me from my place for not having done anything. They were the ones making the false accusation. And they have the audacity to think that because I was going to leave, that I'm assuming guilt on my part, when it was because Judge Waddups dismissed my case with prejudice, and so I had no protection anymore. And so now they're wanting me to sign documents that I'll leave and I'll obey the lease laws or guidelines or rules or whatever. I never violated them in the first place. They violated them. And so they're trying to take advantage of me. I had the video evidence of my innocence. The property manager refused to watch it. She had spoken to witnesses that told her that they had witnessed the attack against me. She ignored them. So yeah, they know they're in the wrong. But they think that because I lost, that therefore I'm in the wrong. And then, the falling star that I saw this morning, turns out in Bosnia, just a little while ago, they had their evening. They had a full-blown meteor shower with those particular, that area. And so they saw what I saw this morning, but they saw it en masse. So what I saw was just the start. So, yeah. My stellarium allows me to go anywhere on the world at any time in history and see what's happening in the skies in that location. So yeah, I was able to confirm. Reuters was the news source that I learned it from. and just picked a Bosnia. I don't know Bosnia, so I just picked one, and sure enough, in the evening sky there was the eagle and Altair. I can't do much talking because my throat gets raspy and I start to cough. Here's a hate comment by Jason Otis. He most likely came from my older channel, but this one has had tons of views because people were coming from the older channel, and so it's likely picked up some people here. It was the updated version of the 2017 July video that I did on the old channel. That's a list and order of all LDS Mormon Church last days signs in heaven. And so I don't believe I speak in there. It's just showing the signs and showing what happened on earth with those signs. And if I'm assuming that's the one, let's confirm. List and order of all LDS Mormon Church last day signs. Probably just type in list and order. And probably don't need to go to my channel. I just type in TWG list and order of all LDS Church signs. There it is. Oh, no, I guess I did talk because it's 51 minutes. So what was the other one? I don't know if I know the other one. So there is some talking, but I did put in some pictures because it's showing pictures as I hover over it. Huh. Alright. But it is the one. Yeah. Because I put in the description, Mormons are flocking to YouTube looking for anything about the signs in the heaven for the last days because the revelators for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are remaining silent. And so Mormons can't catch on to that alone. The fact that they have to look elsewhere because the church is silent. My ex Karen visited me today. And I tried to help her find a church source for any explanation for the inverted pentagram symbol. There is none. The church has not made any comment or statement regarding the inverted pentagram. There's a bunch of Mormons who think they're going to help. And with Karen, I have to be very simple and basic for her. Because if I say something she doesn't understand in the church, she shuts off her brain and doesn't listen. And so I have to keep her attention by keeping it simple so that she follows me. And as a result, I had to clarify because we went to one Mormon site after I confirmed to her the church has nothing. We went to the church's website, nothing. And so there is the handbook I guess I could have gone to. I already did that video for you guys. But yeah, they don't associate themselves with the occult. The falling star is the occult symbol. And so I explained to her, I had already talked about Truman Osborne Angel, Brigham Young's stepbrother or brother-in-law. I went over how he was the designer of it. and she thought, well, that's Wikipedia. Anybody could put stuff in there. The church put the stuff in there. He's Mormon. The church makes sure that Mormon information is controlled and operated by Mormons in violation of Wikipedia's strict guidelines for putting information on Wikipedia articles. And that's why Mormon articles on Wikipedia are almost worthless. They're only pivot points to find out what the real truth is somewhere else. I went over Canandaigua, New York with her, by the way. That horrified her. So that's success. If only I can get Mormons on my videos to likewise have that same response. But the site that talked about their explanation was why are there satanic symbols, inverted pentagrams, on Mormon temples of Salt Lake, Logan, and Nauvoo. And then he says, and I already pointed out this to Karen, Joseph Smith's temple was the Kirtland temple. Joseph Smith did not get involved in any other temple, only Kirtland. I had previously talked about how Elijah and Moses appeared to Joseph Smith in the Kirtland temple during Passover, and that's why he is the modern Messiah, the Christ of whom we were supposed to be looking for in the latter days, but he was assassinated, so he's not the one. And then Joseph Smith, I went over section 103 with her, but I first set it up to inform her with the correct truth. Joseph was only available and alive during the Kirtland temple. So she knew, understood, it was clear. This site then said, why would Joseph Smith put an inverted pentagram on these temples? Salt Lake, Logan, Nauvoo. I reiterated to her, Joseph wasn't a part of those temples. He was dead. That caught her attention. She figured it out. She still wants to revert back into trusting the church, but she figured it out. Lucifer's sign is on the church. This church of Brigham Young, not Joseph. And so in understanding that concept, that the church is the evil church of Lucifer, and that the America, Joseph Smith also said the Constitution would hang by a thread and an elder would need to save it from the brink of destruction. It then becomes clear as to what Babylon means in section 1, verse 16. Because it was not decoded. I had to tell her about decoding, and she was like, I believe that. Which is her way of saying, yeah, whatever. But no, in 1981, the triple was decoded in the Doctrine and Covenants so that we could identify who Joseph Smith is and who other people were in other places that were being talked about, because they were encoded with alternative names and place names. And so the church service missionaries tried to decode what they could. They did not decode Babylon in section 1, verse 16. So I went over that with her. I told her Babylon was a combination of religion and government, a theocracy. America, as I'd already convinced her that America is the place for destruction, not Jerusalem. As I was setting up for the section 45, where it says the Jews will see him and weep. It's not the Jews. That was decoded. And so both America with Ishtar in the New York harbors there, and the Church of Jesus Christ with the inverted pentagram symbol of Lucifer, which refers to Venus, which is also referring to Ishtar. Joseph Smith knew his church would fall into apostasy, that it would be taken over, and he likely to be murdered. But then he also put in there that there would be a Mormon from this apostate branch off after his murder, who would rise up as like Moses, as a mortal man, which is the Christ, as understood. So the Nauvoo temple, I went over with her that it showed their confession to having murdered Joseph and Hiram, the two sunstones, with Lucifer's star above them. And when you do symbolic art, you can't be like a little child and create your own symbolism. It doesn't work to communicate with other people your symbolism if nobody understands your symbolism. In order to communicate your symbolism, there needs to be those who understand the symbols you're using. And as Mormons realize, they have no clue what those symbols mean. Only certain people know. Those who are satanic worshippers and followers of Lucifer's doctrine and Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible, they know the symbol, they recognize it. If they were shown, they go, oh cool, Mormons are like us. So here's Jason Otis, now that I've set up for you the situation. And it was a video going over the signs in the heavens. Your sarcasm. And I probably should have put in a little more, because if you noticed, I've also been putting in Mormons are fulfilling prophecy about Mormons mocking prophets, not LDS church prophets, but Mormons who rise up and say, hey Mormons, you're not behaving like Mormons, cut it out, there's destruction coming. Lehi, Abinadi, Samuel the Lamanite. They were all of the same religion of the people that they condemned and criticized and said, you need to stop it, destruction is coming. I went over that with Karen also. Same religion. Lehi lived in Jerusalem, thus was a Jew because he lived in Judah. Even though he was from Manasseh. And so this is a Mormon, Jason Otis, replying. And this is why I hold my comments for review. That only in certain times will I make a commentary of it. Otherwise, I will ban them from my channel or just delete it if it's got sensitive information. It says, your sarcasm. So already he's classified me. If you've heard me talk about the pseudoscience of psychology and the manner in which they use dichotomous and non-dichotomous categorizations, He's already dichotomized me. He's placed me into a box. And by placing me in that box as one who's being sarcastic, he now is free in his mind to judge me accordingly and condemn me and dismiss me as a warning voice to him. This is what was prophesied in the Book of Mormon with Lehi, Abinadi, Samuel Lamanite, etc., going to their religious organization and saying, "Stop it, guys, you're being bad." Even to the leaders of the church with Abinadi, the Melchizedek, King Noah, and his priests, and Samuel the Lamanite went to the capital of the church of the Nephites. That would be like me going to Utah and being on the wall of the internet, and Mormons, you're being bad, stop it, destruction is coming, the signs are here. So again, he says, your sarcasm seems to be a good sign. He's a sign seeker? Have you cheated on your lovely wife whom you're posing with in that picture? Jason, of my demeanor. You are spreading falsehoods. What exactly? Could you not give me one example of what I lied about? That sort of helps if you're going to make an argument against somebody. You have to give an example. You can't just generalize, because anybody can generalize. I can say that Jason cheats on his wife. That's generalizing. If I said, I saw Jason with Michelle, who's not his wife, then that's a little more specific, and that holds more weight as to whether or not Jason is actually an adulterer, cheating on his wife. So you see the difference between generalizing in an accusation versus being specific about details? He does not give details. And so instead, he's trying to claim the scripture, which comes from, well, it's not scripture, it's actually from the Mormon temples, mingled with scripture. Lucifer. There will be many willing to preach to you the philosophies of men mingled with scripture. That's where he's getting this wording from. He doesn't quite know. It's been a while since he's been to the temple. And so that's what he's referring to here, that I'm spreading falsehoods mingled with just enough truth to seem valid. Wow. So again, he gives me nothing to work with so that I can say, hey, what do you mean false? That's not false. This comes from this one particular thing, and I can respond. We can have a proper discussion if he were to be sound and not abusive in his comment. This is abuse that he's giving me. This is cyberbullying, which is a federal felony. And so he then concludes with his vague premise, you are one of the false prophets that is spoken of. I just went over with you already in advance, knowing of this, which is why I spoke of it in advance, that the Book of Mormon is a pattern for the second coming. All Mormons know this. And in the Book of Mormon, repeated over and over and over again, there are those who are of the same religion who are not the leaders of the church, and in some cases these regular members of the organization speak against the leaders of the church. just as Moses did to Pharaoh. Pharaoh was the leader of the church of Egypt. Did you know that? And so he is calling me a false prophet with his hate speech. So is it true then? No, it's automatically false. Even if it may be true, he did not give a specific example that can confirm. He gave a vague example, referring to a replacement of words from the temple of Lucifer, saying there will be many many prophets or many preachers willing to preach to you the philosophies of men mingled with Scripture. And so preachers of the world became falsehoods, mingled became mixed, Scripture became truth. Where did I get this from? The list in order? Signs in heaven? I got them from Scripture. Those signs in heaven are from Scripture. According to Jason, that's truth. And so, falsehoods? What signs in the heaven were not from Scripture, Jason? Exactly. So, Jason's been banned. But how hard is this for you, Mormons? Apparently it's very hard. You love fulfilling the bad example roles of the last days prophecies. It does not look good for Mormons, and yet Mormons continue to want to destroy anybody who speaks out against them, to warn them even. Because that's where I'm different than other critics. Mormons who've left the church oftentimes are very mocking of Mormons. Some, well, a good number actually, are hurt because Mormons attack them when they realize the church isn't true. That's why the latest video I did about Mormons ought to something about Mormons ought to have been my friends and family, something like that. I'm referring to Joseph Smith and that wording. But it's horrifying to see my own people of my religion, because we are a race, a culture, an ethnic group, distinct, just like Jews and Islam, or Muslims technically. Islam is a religion, Muslim is a culture. But also the religious hatred that they have for anybody who contradicts their will, their thinking, their beliefs, their opinions, their feelings. They don't want to know the truth. I got it from the Bible. And nope, wasn't good enough for Jason. But my ex, she caught on. She understood. And it was starting to scare her. Now the problem I worry about is that the longer time she's away from me, the more likely she's going to turn back to her old thinking processes. I have seen that numerous times among Mormons. You have to constantly remind them over and over and over and over and over and over. Otherwise they go back to their original thinking and solidify that original thinking. Those falsehoods mixed with truth. And then we have a subscriber who's asking me some questions, wanting my answers for at least the first one anyway. He says, what would be the abomination of desolation? Well, it is in and of itself what it is. I know there are some people that want to say that it's homosexuality, evangelicals specifically, but I think it ties into your thinking it's the nuclear bomb. But desolation, that's what it is. What does the Book of Mormon talk about over and over again? Do not pollute the land. Do not be wicked in the United States of America. Because when you do, you will be destroyed. That's why the prophets keep stepping up, who are not the leaders of the church, keep stepping up to tell their own church members, cut it out. We're going to be destroyed. We're going to desolate the land. There are different ways to desolate a land. The most common one is by deforestation. Africa has been deforested. It used to be a lush vegetative land. The crescent, the Mesopotamian crescent, cedars of Lebanon even, were all lush, fertile. All sorts of wild animals, of which are portrayed on Egyptian as well as Assyrian and Hittite carvings, show the hunting of such wild animals. And it's gone. They just utterly destroyed the crescent. Nevada area. It wasn't just from the nuclear bombs that the United States was testing in there, which then gave cancer to southern Utahns. You know that? America gave cancer to Mormons in southern Utah by doing nuclear testing in Nevada. And so that's one type of desolation, is not being able to produce food, to farm, and thus animals can't be there. They have to migrate away to find vegetation, and so it's just a desert wasteland. There are numerous occasions of talking about deserts versus fertile valleys or fertile lands. Another one is through war, where you kill off the population because you just hate each other to such extremes that it leads to war. And that's what we're seeing in the United States right now. Protesters against police violence and brutality are being victimized with violence and brutality by the police departments for protesting them. But the abomination is a descriptive word, whereas desolation is the condition word. And that's the whole thing. You don't want to lay waste to the earth, because what does God tell Adam and Eve in the beginning? You know, have babies, but also take care of the garden. Be farmers, be agriculturalists. Domesticate. Don't let them run wild, because they'll carry coronavirus and kill you off. If you domesticate, you lessen the virus outbreaks, and your bodies as humans will be able to be immune from the low-level extremes of the viral outbreaks. And that's what people who want to, tree huggers as they're called, that's what they don't get. So when you have the one old 80s Batman movie, or was it 90s, with Poison Ivy was infected buy plant serum and became a human-plant hybrid with the poison kiss of death. That's what happens when you don't domesticate vegetation. You just let it run wild, like animals even. Just let them run wild. And what happens is that there are no controls. It becomes a survival of the fittest, because there are certain vegetation that dominate over other vegetations. And for the most part, it's weeds that dominate. And in some extreme circumstances, you get jungles rather than forests. And that's not habitable. And such people are anti-human when they think that animals or plants need higher priority status than humans. Even if they're claiming they want equality for plants and animals, which I don't think that's possible, because humans require vegetation and animal life. But what they really mean is that they want humans controlled in order to be made equal. And how do you control humans but by murder? And so it's not good to be pro-environment or pro-animal life over humans. The pro-life movement is a different story. That's a situation where women's lives are being jeopardized because the patriarchal authoritarianism wants to control the lives of women, enslave them, control them. And so, yeah, pro-life is perfectly fine in that circumstance. But when you tell people, oh, you can't have meat, that's murder. How dare you have a cow for dinner? And then you get sci-fi shows that try to perpetuate this theory by creating a non-existing, as a claimed hypothetical scenario, of a plant life organism that's able to communicate like humans and requires life in order to survive. And the prime directive of Star Trek forbids Star Trek from interfering with the life of the plants. I think it was Star Trek Discovery that's coming out with season 2 in October, I think it is. But they had an organism, a biological organism, I think. It was just an unformed organism that was being killed by humans, and so they were defending themselves against the humans. But what they were doing in that is by creating a false premise that would never happen in order to try to prove their point that humans need to allow for plant and animal life. But that's another way is murder with war. And so, yeah, you're not supposed to desolate the land. You're supposed to beautify it, turn it into a garden, and domesticate it. That's how gardens are. They're domesticated vegetation areas. And so, I hope it's not a nuclear bomb, because that would be used for war. But if you believe in Bruce Armour Conky, he definitely believed the fulfillment would be nuclear bombs. Describing the scene of eyes falling out of the sockets and flesh melting. Just like in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. He had to change it. It was Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then it became Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. But, yeah, that would not be good if it's on the West Coast. It would have to be a relatively small nuke, because anything larger than, I think, a 5 kiloton. Wonder if that's still online. Wonder if I can nuclear. Yeah, I don't remember the scenario. If I spelled that one correctly. Nuke map. There we go. Nuclearsecretary.com. Alex Wellerstein is the one who came up with it. So, Philadelphia is his starting place. And you can change it to wherever you want in the world, and select the size, select the name of the city. Yeah, we'll do West Valley City. Go. Alrighty. Enter a yield in kilotons. We'll do 5. So yeah, it's going to be relatively small, because megatons are the big one. Let's see, we want surface. That causes more damage than an airburst. And then we want to see the casualty report and the radioactive fallout report. And then we click detonate. And estimated fatalities, only 3,000. Estimated injuries, 7,000. And then it's got the blast, which depends on which way the wind's blowing. It's coming from the southwest, as he has it automatically set for, but you can change the flag's direction for whatever area the wind is going. And so, yeah, just 5 kilotons is relatively small, and it pretty much takes out a major portion of West Valley City. I believe you can go as high as 999. Detonate. Okay, nuke map FX models can only take up to 100,000 kilotons. That's 100 megatons. Sorry. So then let's put in 999, and then detonate. Oh, no, it says only 100,000, so I can't sneak in a higher number. Okay, 100,000. And that takes out all of the valley. 100 megatons. Just utterly decimates. All the way down to Springville. Oops, oh, wrong way. Come on, go back. And clear through Ogden. And that's just centered in West Valley City. And then the radiation fallout from the wind direction, that is blowing well up into Canada, into Winnipeg of Manitoba. The red zone enters into Montana, just barely. The orange zone gets into North Dakota, and the next level they show it's the fireball radius thing. Let's see. No, wait. Here we go. Here's the. All right. Fallout contour for 100,000 rads per. Okay, maximum down. That's where the maximum width, approximate. I need the interpretation of these. But yeah, this all. The weakest one is fallout contour for 1 rad per hour. I mean, that is just devastating. You get 100 megaton bombs positioned all down the west coast. Let's move the explosion. Show for an example. Put it right about, there's San Francisco area. Then we'll move the flag. Yeah, and if the wind blows directly at and over the top of the mountains, it doesn't factor in mountains that may interfere with the spreading of it. But other than that, is just massive. So, yeah. Oh, did you catch the thing? Did you? Yeah, nuke map. It's actually nuclearsecretary.com, but if you type in nuke map, it'll come up. I hadn't used that for a long time now. Alrighty, how many hours have I done? Well, I should do a short video telling Mormons that they're being bad.